attending. We appreciate y'all being here. I wanted to go over a few quick housekeeping things first before we get started. So one of the first things is restrooms. They're right around the corner, men and women. Figured that was pretty important. Water, we do have bottled water here in the registration booth, so if you do need some bottled water, just let us know. We'll get you some bottled water. There is the baptismal outside. That's probably one of the most important things that you need to know about. There are 2 stock tanks outside. Mad Kelt, are you in here? Yep, stand up, please. Mad Kelt, he is our baptismal volunteer. If you are feeling led to be dunked, go see Mad Kelt, and he will absolutely be happy to dunk you. We do have towels and stuff available to dry you off. Now, like I said on Facebook, that doesn't mean that you have to get Mad Kelt. Husbands, if you have wives here or children that you want to baptize, do it. Sisters, if you're here with a sister, baptize your sister. Brother, baptize your brother. The Spirit is leading us, not us. I just wanted to let you know that we do have someone available to you if you do want to be baptized. So, the first thing there is that. And then, let me get my handy dandy list. Red shirt ladies. Obviously, I'm one of them. The other one is KL. She's in the back right there. She just ran in. So KL and I, KL will mostly be at registration. You'll see me running around. If you do have ruckus-related questions, event-related question, timeline, anything like that, you can reach out to one of us. We'll be happy to answer your questions. So we'll be your main point of contact for ruckus-related information. And then the final thing is raffle tickets. You may have seen a little sign at the registration table as well as the Kaleb House table. There are raffles that are available for you to put a ticket in. Those will be announced at the award ceremony after party. It'll be one of the first things. So basically after the ruck, we'll have lunch and then we'll do the award ceremony and after party. So that's when we'll announce the winners of that. Obviously, all the money from the raffle goes back to Kaleb House, and we do have actually a really exciting raffle that's not yet on that table. We have an 1891 Mauser from Berlin that is going to be on that table that's being donated by someone who's here today. So we really appreciate all the volunteers, all the people that have donated stuff to us. If at any point, I do want to put this out there, if you are interested in being a remote volunteer helping out with events, I do need volunteers for that. So have already worked with a few people that are across the country that have helped with getting donations to Kaleb House, sponsorships, things like that. So if that's something you think you'd be interested in, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to work with you on that and onboard you with that process. Also, lunches. We do have box lunches available that are going to be in both rooms at noon. They're sandwiches, so there is only turkey and chicken, so there's no pork, obviously. So it's just your typical box lunches, sandwiches, chips, cookies, things like that, and we have the water. If you would like to have a little bit more of a lavish lunch, there is literally right across the street a ton of really great restaurants. We did put restaurants nearby in almost every single one of the bags, so there's a list of restaurants that are nearby. But you absolutely are more than welcome to go out and visit the local community and eat at some of the restaurants. So, again, if you have any questions, see myself or Kayal throughout the day, but I'd like to hand the mic over to Bear Independent so he can bring us in with a prayer. Very dramatic entrance.
I don't like microphones. Can you guys hear me? All right. coffee to the vendors to all of it, I had nothing to do with. And so please give a round of applause to my team. Thank you. I am also blessed to be surrounded by my tribe. And I love them, and I'm very thankful they are here. They're incredible human beings. If you don't have a tribe, get one now. Because everything I do that is meaningful and impactful in my life, all the things that you see, all the fruit of Bear Independent, it is not me. It is the Father working through us. And there's a whole bunch of us on the backside of the camera that you'll never see. And so I'm super thankful to my tribe as well. And I am overcome with emotion for y'all. Thank you so much for being here. This is huge. This is the inaugural event of what should become the annual Refuge Ruckus for Kaleb House. And it is beautiful to me to see a room full of people that will do more than pay lip service to the idea that somebody has to do something to rescue and restore these kiddos. And as I've already made clear, this is not about me. I didn't do this. The Father did this. He is using all these people, including y'all, to spread this message to rescue these kids and rehabilitate these kids. And I am personally just incapable of sitting by and doing nothing, knowing that this problem exists. And it has been, you don't know what a blessing you have been to me, to my teams, and to these kids. I can never tell you some of the absolutely ridiculous shit that we have had to do. One day, maybe, I'll write a book. But we're not going to make any movies. There's not going to be any tell-alls. That's a waste of our time and resources. But you have been directly responsible for the rescue and restoration of dozens of children. And for that, I applaud you. Thank you. And with that, we are going to talk to the creator of the universe. Good morning, Father Yah. Father, we love you. Thank you so much for this opportunity. Father, I pray that you'd be indwelt in these rooms today, that your Spirit would flow throughout these rooms, that you'd pour out your Spirit on all flesh, Father. Father, thank you for creating this opportunity for all of us to come together. And I pray that you'd use our hands and our feet to be a blessing, that you would give us your words, that we would be able to minister to one another and steward one another, Father, and that this would be a place of joy, that there would be relationships built in these rooms today, Father, and that you would just speak to us in ways that we can understand. I pray that you keep us safe, Father, that no weapon formed against us shall prosper. And Father, if there is anything within the sound of my voice that is not of you, we come together in agreement to rebuke it in the name of Yeshua HaMashiach and command it to flee. Father, thank you for all these people. Thank you for this beautiful day. Thank you for the gift of life by the blood of your Son. We love you and we praise you in Yeshua's name. Amen. And I have no idea what happens next. But Sarah does, because she's awesome. And it was called Yellow.
Hi, everyone. Hi. So, also I'm not familiar with speaking on a microphone, so if things go tragically awry, you'll know why. So my name's Pandy. I am the MC for this particular room. If you're in here, if you have any questions or whatever, and I can't find a red shirt, find me, and I'll help you out. But otherwise, like Bear said, it's fantastic to see everybody here. There's some chairs up here if people need to fill in or whatever. For those of you standing in the back, you're welcome to work your way to the front. But I'm going to go ahead and introduce our first speakers that need no introduction. So we're talking PJ and SK Fox, Viking Preparedness, and Sister Kate Shofar Mountain, both fantastic channels that I'm personally subscribed to. PJ and SK both grew up overseas and served as Boy and Girl Scout leaders, firefighters, and the pastoral team for over 15 years for 2 congregations. PJ is a retired Special Forces, served 20 years in the military. While he was serving our country, SK homeschooled their 3 children, earned various firearms instructors and EMT certification, and is just an all-around amazing woman. They've been living off-grid as neo-pioneers and community leaders for over 10 years, and they've got gardens, orchards, critters, they're both published authors, great books as well, and so, as we said, so successful social media channels. So just go ahead.
Ruckers.
Hey!
Shalom.
Thank you for that nice introduction. We were going to do an introduction, but we don't need to. I'm PJ, and this is...
SK.
Yay!
Shalom, everybody.
All right. Hey, we're going to give a talk today on off-grid homesteading. We've been doing it, as you may have heard, for about 12 years now, and
Long time.
we are not the experts in off-grid homesteading. I don't even necessarily recommend that you homestead off-grid. You can learn from, I think, what we're going to put out, whether good or bad. Chew the meat, spit out the bones, take what you can use, discard what you don't need. But I just wanted to be sure that I let you know we're not claiming to be the experts on this. All right.
We're experienced. We're just not experts.
We are experienced.
We have a little wisdom and knowledge about it, but all right.
Oh, come on. Boop. Boop.
Technology.
Anybody
makes
know
your
what a
life
PowerPoint
easier.
Ranger is? That's not me. That should be down click. All right, let's try up click. Nope. Maybe I got to do it on here. What? Yeah.
Scroll
Where's
down.
that? There's page up, page down. Nope. Page up. Nope. Okay, I can do that.
There we go.
I can
Hey.
just click on that. All right, very good. Thank you. Yay, that's us. That's our introduction. We bought our land in 1990.
Yeah.
And actually, I wanted to do this. Before we get going, how many people here are homesteading to one degree or another? Show of hands. Awesome.
Oh, nice. Yes.
Hands down. How many people are off-grid to one degree or another? Okay. We bought our land in 1990, and we didn't look like this then. We looked like, oh, come on.
Come on.
I'm gonna quit flicking slides here in a minute. Click, click. How about
Yeah,
this?
help her coming
Click.
to the rescue. Thank you. Sure.
Slide. Slide. Next slide. That one. That's where we're trying to go. Back up. That's all right.
Oop.
Now you know what we're going to talk about. You know what?
That's a
We don't
homemade
have to do
cake.
slides.
That's not
There we
just
go.
a punch.
We look like that
There.
when we bought
that's
the
us.
property.
Yes.
Very young. And,
Yeah. We were so when we bought
and that's
it.
kind of the point. I get every day online, how do you afford property? How do you do this? When we bought our property, how much was it?
$237 an acre.
$237 an acre in 1990. Now that was still a lot of money for us then, but it was definitely not 100 times that like it is now. And honestly, we could not afford our property now.
Right.
We couldn't. We started early.
Yep.
But for people who are like, it'll never happen to me, I just told a story on Patreon the other day. We had a 19-year-old show up at Shofar Mountain, become part of the tribe, and he's now 20, but in less than a year, he bought land, has a cabin, has a job, is in the tribe.
Right.
And so it can be done if you want to, and he's living off grid.
As you all know, it's just hard work. It's hard work. You just work at it.
When we bought our property, it was rocks and what else?
Trees. A little bit of
Rocks.
trees, a little bit of rocks. You can see it right there. Just
It was on the side of two mountains. It did not have any road on it. It didn't have a well on it. It didn't have anything on it. We didn't even have access to our property. We
Right.
got a deeded easement across our neighbor's pasture to get to a corner of our property, and he was cool, and he would let us park in his pasture. I can't talk that fast. And we would literally walk down the mountain here and come into the property here.
right. Fully treed, fully bushed. Like you have to push your way through to get to where we camped, and you have to clear that just to camp.
We decided that the first thing we needed to do was see if we could get a well drilled, because my plan was if we cannot get water, and this was my thinking then back in 90. Do you want a chair? That just doesn't look comfortable at all. If we couldn't get water, we were literally going to sell it and
Right.
get rid of it. Now we're going to talk about water here in a minute, but there's other things to do if you can't drill a well. But to drill a well in the woods and the rocks and the trees, we had to build a road first. We had to have a road built. And so we paid a guy with a bulldozer. We were living in Kansas City at the time, the Kansas City area, and that made us rich to the people in the mountains. They were like, oh, those rich people from Kansas City. And so we did not pay local prices to have a road bulldozed into the place. And this is where the road was bulldozed, but this has been bulldozed and widened and gravelled
Yeah.
a bunch of times since
Yeah.
that time. Brought a well truck in, drilled the well, bottom line, the well worked. And so we decided, okay, this is doable. The next thing we did was clear land for trailers.
Right.
Because at the time we were starting an intentional community, and how many families did we have?
I think we started with four.
We had four families, and we needed a place to park the trailers. And so we flattened out a place, we moved in, and then from there, we just kept going. We built more roads, had more roads built, things like that.
Put up some fences. Had to do like a chicken coop because when we come down, we're bringing some animals with us. We needed some fencing, things like that. And then water became so important in that circumstance. And if you don't have a well, and we didn't when we first got there, we had to figure that out. So the first thing we did was go into town, and we asked around, and the local fire department said, well, we have a little spigot off the side of the fire department building. You can go fill up your water there. Also, luckily for us in the area, there was an artesian well that's still going that has a spigot out the side of a mountain. And all the locals knew about it. And as we started to meet locals, they were like, oh yeah, I've been getting my water there for years. Just stick an IBC tote on the back of a pickup truck, go to the spigot, and it fill your thing. So we did that also. We did have, in some mysterious ways, there was literally no water on the property when we bought it. But in the meantime, between buying it, which was several years, and we'd forget we owned it, we would go down and visit every once in a while. In between, there was an earthquake in Oklahoma, which we've experienced a few of those, not very big. So when we come down to the property, there is actually water leaking out of the ground from a water pipe that's going from where we live to Oklahoma. And so now we have some water. It's chlorinated because you can smell it. It's coming right out of the ground. But there's no way for us to get it up to where we need it. So I had a horse at that time, and I would put 5-gallon containers on the saddle, tie them on, and ride down there and get the water and ride back up. And that was how we started with water, and then it went on. It developed. I got my little thing here. So after that, someone donated for our first well, and so we did have a well dug, and that's the one you see there. But as you also see the broken pipes and everything, you can't just like, okay, I'm going to PVC pipe it. If it freezes in the winter, it splits the pipe. Things like that.
We got really good at fixing PVC pipe.
Right? And so then we moved on to water catchment, and there's a whole thing there. I'm sure as you homesteaders know, you have to filter the water or boil it or whatever, but that is what we do now. So we've upgraded to that. And with the water there, that kind of segues into the critters. And somebody, are you going?
Yes, I'm there.
Okay.
Critters.
So we did show up with critters on the property. We brought 13 goats. We brought about 30 chickens, 4 ducks, my horse, and that was about it. And at the time we got there, the goats were able to be milked. The chickens laid eggs. But as you all know, raise your hand if you've lost an animal to a predator, right? You can't just show up and they're going to free range everywhere. You have to have some protection for them. So for the critters, put a coop up. If you've watched like the first video on my channel, we did the fence panel over with tarp and now milk the goats under that. Dog kennel to keep the bigger birds in. All of it just, starting from ground zero, working our way up. And with the critters, we still have them. We've upgraded to, and again, raise your hand if you've done this, the electrical fencing, which you can move around, that kind of helps, on property, because with goats and things, you have to move them. If you leave the goats and the sheep in the same place, they're going to get worms. So you kind of rotate animals around. It also improves your property as you do things like move the sheep, put the chickens, move the chickens, put something else.
When we first started, we didn't have fencing, and we didn't have sheep either at the time. We had goats.
Right.
And SK would take horse leads, tie 2 of them together with a hook at each end, and she would hook the alpha goats. That's what I call them. She's the goat lady. I'm the support. But she'd hook the goats to a tree, and they'd eat their way around the tree. And if you hooked up the dominant goats, the other goats would just hang out there in that part of the woods.
Right.
And that worked really well for a while. But sometimes those billy goats grow up, and they get ornery, and it's more difficult to deal with them.
Right.
And then we have birds and...
Yeah, we had ducks, and we had, we even bought some geese, but unfortunately, the dogs killed them. But I have geese now. Anyway, with the animals, you have to get that infrastructure in order for them to be protected and that you get to have increase. It's really hard to do it rough like we did. So we're kind of here, take information, learn, improve your homestead, make sure you've got that taken care of. Okay, so then we move from that into the wild edibles. One thing about our property that we really noticed way back in the beginning, I went and saw it separate from him. So I show up with the kids and I get walked around part of it before we actually purchased it. And I'm like, oh wow, we have trees and some, and then he goes and he sees a different part and it's like, yeah, but we've also got.
Yeah, so I went out the first time to look at the property. We bought the property through United Country Realty back before there was an internet. And so they would send us flyers and I responded and said, I'm interested in this 62-acre piece. And the guy said, well, we don't sell anything sight unseen. You got to come out here. So I arranged to come out there, looked at the 62-acre piece, and I said, yep, I like it. I'll pay what he's asking for it, but I want it surveyed. I want a survey of the land because you really don't want to buy country land on somebody's word. You want to know what you're getting. And he said, well, I don't know if he's going to want to do that. I said, well, if he doesn't do it, I'm not going to buy it. And so then I'm done looking at the land that I came out there to see. And he goes, well, I hate for y'all to come all this way, in case this falls through. Why don't I show you another parcel? And he showed us Shofar Mountain. And to this day, I wonder if they pulled a quickie on me. Because I flew back to Washington State, and about a week later, he goes, yeah, they're not going to take that offer. They don't want to survey it. And I said, well, all right, then put an offer. I'll pay the guy on the other parcel what he wants, but he's got to survey it.
Yeah.
And he said, well, I don't know if they're going to want to survey it. I said, well, you know me. If he doesn't survey it, I'm not buying it. So we bought that parcel, and it was actually owned by one of the real estate agents. That's why I'm wondering if they didn't set me up to buy that parcel. But that's where the Father wanted us, and that's where we were. So anyway, Kate went out to close on it. I couldn't close on it because I was deployed. And so she goes out, they show her around, they close on it, and then we come back. We didn't go to the property for 5 years. And she saw a totally different part of the property than I did. One of us is talking about cacti growing, and the other one's talking about a stone wall, and the other one's talking about this big cliff. And it's like, what did you see? Are you sure you saw this property?
Right,
Sorry.
so I thought it was high desert. I thought we had bought high desert. There was hardly any greenery. And so when we go for the next visit, like 5 years later, there's greenery all over the place. And that's when I noticed the wild edibles. And we have so much. And I'm sure y'all's property too. Grapevines, blackberry bushes, walnut trees. We've even got passion fruit vines that grow up. Persimmon trees. I mean, it was like a Garden of Eden.
We just found huckleberries, which are kind of like blueberries, last year.
We'd see that plant and say, that looks like it ought to grow blueberry on it, but it wasn't a year or two ago. We actually saw the huckleberries at the end of the season. So I feel like that was the Father saying, I know what's on there. You don't know what's on there, but I do. And since you bought it, here you go. Discover. And this is me right now pointing to the little bowl. That's acorns. We have oak trees, acorns fall. Guess what? You can eat an acorn. There's whole Native American tribes that live acorn as like their main starch. So that's what I'm doing in that picture. And then, do I have one more? Yes. So then, isn't this, look at, it's like a beautiful garden in a magazine.
Doesn't it look like the cover of Mother Earth News?
Right, isn't it? Oh my gosh, and the flowers and the way they laid the bed out, that's more Nick's thing. I think he's probably got a better looking garden than ours. This was flooded out 3 times the first time we put it in. We did the back to Eden method, which is another way Yahweh worked for us, and probably for y'all too. We knew we had rocks and trees. We had no soil that we knew of.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Absolutely.
We moved there in December of 2012, and in February, because we knew we wanted to grow food, we broke ground here. We'd already had a bulldozer come through. We broke ground with my grandfather's pickaxe, his coal mining pickaxe, to plant peas in February. It was awful. And I get this stuff on the internet all the time. Well, why don't you just do this with dirt? And why don't you just do this with dirt? I'm like, we don't have dirt. We have rocks and trees. But the back to Eden method did work really well for us.
Exactly. So we put the back to Eden method to work there. We put the cardboard down, went, scavenging in liquor stores and Walmarts and stuff for the boxes, and cut them and laid it all out, put all that on there, and then put the mulch on it, which we also had to go find where the mulch was available, and it was washed out 3 times. And I told the menfolk at that time, I'm not doing this again till we get a ditch, because the water flows down the mountain and washes right across. So a neighbor had a backhoe and volunteered, dug the ditch. So now this is actually the garden area, and because we did do back to Eden, there is about 6 to 8 inches of soil there, which is nice. And then I'm telling you, those fences with the tarps, it's just a thing for me. It works really, really well. So that's my greenhouse there on the right. And I started with 4 mil plastic that you buy at TSC or a hardware store, just as an experiment. And the men put the block down and then attached it to fence posts. And that works. The 4 mil plastic only lasts about 2 years, but inside it was always 30 degrees warmer than outside. I would not use the block if I were to do it again, simply because your squares are small and so your plants get huge, but the concept worked really well. And then, as you know, there's plastic fencing on that because, gosh, rabbits and deer and squirrels and all sorts of animals really like it.
Our son took a class in college called Country Folk in the Land or something like that, and he gave me a concept that is kind of like, yeah, no kidding, but I hadn't thought of it before, and that is with fencing. When you fence, when one fences, one either fences in or fences out. You can have a chicken run where you keep the chickens in, or you can put a fence around your garden to keep the chickens or deer or whatever out. And how many people have problems with deer in your garden? Because this is actually shot from about our front porch, this photograph. There will be 3 or 4 deer before we put those hoops in there, just standing in our garden. And I go out and clap at them, and they look at me. And then they walk off when I get my pellet gun out. And I keep threatening to eat venison with our vegetables in the middle of summer if they keep it up. So what we decided to do, to fence out deer, you need about a 10-foot high fence. And that's kind of beyond our ability to do, and I can't figure out how to make it look nice and do it, because I know that doesn't look great, but we have a goal. We want to look nice. And so we started doing these hoop houses, if you will, with fencing panels, cattle panels, and that keeps the deer out of our garden. So we have beds inside those.
And it is actually pretty effective. And we also, I eventually went to screening the bottom half of that greenhouse, because the bugs are okay to come in if they can find a spot, but the screening really keeps them down. I'm not going to say it's perfect, but it's better than just trying to open air garden. I've grown cabbages. I've grown all kinds of vegetables here, and we also do a lot of composting to improve the soil. I try to stay away from having to buy fertilizer, and then there was a fertilizer shortage, I think, last year. So manure, we have rabbits. The rabbit manure can go right on the garden. It's pretty friendly. We do it on the orchard and everything else. So we also do have an orchard. Learn from our mistakes. We put it in the middle of a forest, because that's what we had. And so there's not quite enough sunlight, and we're going to do more trees, but we do get some peaches and some pears and some apples. And I keep my ducks and geese in that space, because their manure and the water when they're splashing is good for the fruit trees. So that is the gardens and the fruit. And then,
and I got the next one. The thing with the orchard, we were going to have our houses, when we had this community thing going on, and we had like 4 or 5 families, we picked a place on the land where we wanted to put our houses in, and then I paid a guy. We walked through the woods with orange tape and said, yeah, bring the road this way, and then build a big cul-de-sac here for 4 houses. And he said, gotcha. I went back to Kansas City. He called me back, and he said, I got back there, and I made the cul-de-sac, but you're not going to be able to put houses there. And I said, why not? He said, because we have school bus-sized rocks, and I don't think you have enough money to blast for your houses. And so then we moved it to here, which is another long story. But we had now this cul-de-sac in the middle of the woods where we wanted to put our houses, and we said, well, what are we going to do with that? And so we got a backhoe in, and we dug through rock and made holes and planted a bunch of trees, and we've just lived with that ever since. Oh, come on. There we go. This is the trailer that SK and I lived in for 2.5 years. Now, we have lived in capital cities of foreign lands. We have lived in hoity-toity areas of Northern Virginia. We had a pretty nice house in Kansas, and we moved from there to that $300 trailer, which is in better condition right there than when I bought it. And I tell people I married a special woman, because the average woman would not consider that. It was not heated. We didn't know what we didn't know. It's not skirted. It doesn't have a roof over it. We put plastic over it because it leaked. In the early days, we shot videos in there. We had a bathroom in the back that we put a composting toilet in. I ripped the trailer toilet out. We just put a composting toilet in. There was a shower stall, and there was a little sink, and I ran it to gray water. And we had a little juice glass, and we would get our water out of the well and pour it in the juice glass out of a little container and brush our teeth, and there'd be this much left in the juice glass. Well, because we pump our water, we save that. And in the morning when we would get up in the wintertime, that would be a solid ice cube.
Yep.
And we were sleeping in there. So that was our first house, and there were better trailers. Ours was the worst trailer. And the women would take turns cooking their part of dinner. So let's say SK's making the chicken, another wife would make mashed potatoes, another one would make green beans or something. And then we would all come out here into these rocks in the center of all the trailers, and we would eat. Well, it started snowing or sleeting. And so we'd come out, we'd get the food, we'd set it on a plastic table, everybody get their food, we'd say a grace, and everyone would retreat to their trailer. And we decided, all right, this is a little bit too hard to do and it's not working. And so we decided, and we didn't have a lot of money. We did this on the cheap. We bought 2 of those carports, and they're 18 feet wide by 20 feet long. And we had cleared a spot with a bulldozer, and we were just going to set these 2 carports over it, put walls on it, and call that our kitchen community center. And then we had a visitor come down, a guy named Pastor Dow, if you know who he is. And he's like, Pastor, you got to get these women someplace to cook food and eat, and this is unacceptable.
Not a gravel floor.
What?
Not a gravel floor. He said you
Yeah,
can't make them cook and be
Well,
on the
I said,
gravel
we
floor.
are. We're going to get these carports set up. And he goes, what are you going to use for a floor? I said, we're going to use this. And he said, you can't use this. And I said, look, we have a limited amount of money, and we're going to get to housing here in a minute, with which we're going to build our houses. We can't be spending it on stuff we don't need because we already don't have enough money. And so he built the floor of our first community center, an 18 by 40 that became our kitchen. It was pretty nice.
Yeah.
It was our gathering place. We put a wood stove in it. We could be in there and be warm. And we went through a couple different wood stoves. We went from small to big to make it warm in there. But yeah, we lived in that for 2.5 years. And of course, SK, as wonderful as she is, was like, you know what? We need a house. And so I put this up. I think I was on Facebook at the time. I quit Facebook. And I said, Sister Kate doing her toenails. Because she and I built our house. And it's basically a 20 by 30 with a little pop-up house. I had 0 construction experience.
I had less.
We had a neighbor lady drive down on our 4-wheeler. Her husband spent his life in construction, from being a teenager helping build houses to being the guy in the white shirt and the helmet with the clipboard. And she came driving down one time, and I was up there banging away with my Estwing framing hammer. I was like, yeah, I have a real hammer. I'm a real construction guy. And she laughed at me. And she goes, Joe, that's not how you hold a hammer. And she was right. I was all choked up on this hammer. I didn't know what I didn't know. But you can learn almost anything on the internet. We had brothers come over and show us how to frame the first couple walls. That lady that I talked about's husband came and got us started on the first 6 rafters that we did. And we built our house. Little house, but
Yep.
far superior.
No shower stall, though. I still miss that trailer shower stall. It was actually kind of cozy, and it did what it was supposed to, drain, dried out. I still miss that.
So we have lots of cabins. We have outhouses. We have chicken sheds. SK built a sheep shed, a duck house. And this is the last building we built. Grindstone helped out greatly on this, and it's a 30 by 50, we call it the Longhouse building, and it's our catch-all room. We have a kitchen in it. We have storage in it. It's where we gather for everything from classes to fellowship to
And the
whatever.
brethren are the ones who
And the
built
brothers
that.
built it.
Yeah,
And so,
they did the walls and everything.
and
The
if you watch the
ceiling,
videos, you've seen it in there.
even the porch. They did a great job.
Okay, solar. In my opinion, there's 2 ways. There's 2 ways to do everything. There's 2 ways to do solar. If you get online or you get a book or something like that, what they're going to tell you is figure out how much electricity you want to, what do you want to power? I want to power this refrigerator. I want to power lights for 6 hours a day. I want to do this, that, and the other thing. You do some weird math. I'm not a math guy. You do some math, and then you figure out, okay, I'm going to need this much power, and based on that, we have this many days of full sun, this many cloudy days, et cetera, et cetera. You're going to need a system with a battery bank this big. The way solar works, for those of you who don't know, the sun hits the panels generate electricity, they send that electricity on wires through a battery controller to your battery bank, and it stores in the batteries. And then when you use the electricity, you're basically drawing it off your batteries. That's in a nutshell. There's another way of doing solar, the way we did it. When we lived in that trailer, we went to
Harbor Freight.
and we bought at the time, $200 60-watt
Yep.
solar system, and then we went and bought a trolling battery, which is just a 12-volt battery that can
Yep.
be charged and recharged. And we took it home and we said, let's see what we can do with this. Because for about a year and a half, we had zero electricity in that camper I showed you. We would charge our phones in our car. And when we had to charge the laptops up, we went to McDonald's.
Ugh.
They knew us at McDonald's. They would give SK free food when we were there. And so we started out with 60-watt system, which means 3 20-watt panels. By comparison, each one of those panels is 350 watts. So
And I don't think that 60 watt did much more than just charge a cell phone. Seriously.
Right.
It really had no power at all. And then we got goal
Then
zero.
I bought a 100-watt panel. It's like I felt like I was doing something, and I had to buy a
Upgrade.
different charger, and we started upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. And then, people say it's expensive to do solar. It is. It is expensive to do solar, and if you're looking at cost savings, wow, you've got to pay a lot of electricity bills till you pay off your solar. We were blessed. A brother in New Mexico said, I want to send you some panels. And he sent us actually 6 panels. And then another brother in the Pacific Northwest said, the Father's telling me I'm going to come set up your solar system. And so he came and he bought the batteries and the controllers and the inverter and all that stuff and set up our house system. So this is our house system. We have those panels feeding into, for those of you who care, 16 6-volt batteries. And with that, we power a full-size refrigerator freezer. We use fans in the summertime. We turn on lights an hour a day.
Yes. And do our phones and our laptop. I did want to say one thing. Getting a used solar system is actually a thing you can do if you are in a budget, because people do upgrade and they usually sell the whole system because the components match, but they won't for the next thing they're going to. So 50 cents to $1 a watt is actually, it was about 10 years ago, a good deal used. So that's just one way you can make it happen if you don't want to, shell out for new stuff right off the bat.
And we have lots of solar systems. We probably have 8 solar systems. We have
Yeah.
a huge one for the longhouse. We have little ones for the different cabins that people use on their own. And so it's not
Yeah.
like we have an electric company on Shofar Mountain.
Yeah, no. And
Cooking.
I'm going to just
go ahead.
throw in there, I started with a Goal Zero notebook size to charge my phone. And they were $100 or $70. I think they were $40 at Harbor Freight when it first started. So, just make it work for you. Decide on what you want and how much.
That's the original community. We called it the community center. We're actually going to tear that down, pour a concrete pad, put a steel building in looking like the longhouse, just a lot smaller, and make it a clinic. But that was it. And then across the street from that, we have, I think, 300 watts of solar panels that feeds into that, so we can have lights and a fan on in there. But we're going to talk about cooking real quick.
That's right. So when we first got there, the cooking options for me was a propane stove and that little trailer, which worked fine, but it's kind of small. And so dishes that I brought down didn't exactly fit. But when I had a sister go to Dollar Tree or Dollar General, their pans and things fit. So I would bake in that thing and I would cook on the top. And if I wanted to do anything else outside of that, it was over a fire and a Dutch oven. And Dutch ovens are awesome. They are just a very well thought out way to cook over a fire, and you can have multiple going on. You can have 4 of them stacked up with the coals underneath and have your main dish, your side dish, and your dessert all baking at the same time. And then, let's see, I gotta check my notes because I can't remember. We upgraded to,
Look, Just the picture.
Oh, you got the picture the Pioneer made, yes. This was something that a friend had bought for their house. They had 7 children and a huge house, about as big as this. They bought a metal building and lived in it. And so it heated and cooked, and I like that concept. This is a little bit bigger than the Pioneer Princess. It has a water containment over here, like 5 gallons, so it gets hot when you cook. You feed the fire, and this one from the top, and this is a whole warming thing. So if you want to rise your bread or keep your dish warm while you're cooking the other dish, that oven, it seems really amazing to me, but a modern oven will do the same. I've cooked 2 chickens and like 9 pies in the same time. It's pretty easy to maintain, clean, and re-oil it. This is, take the ashes out, and just for everyone's knowledge, if you're going to buy one, 50 degree log is
What?
about
They didn't hear
the way
that part.
it does, huh?
They didn't hear that part you cut out.
50 degrees per log, like split log, quarter inch or quarter of a main thing, is approximately what that oven gets to. So if you want to bake biscuits, you throw in 6 to 8 logs. And it only takes about 15 minutes for the temperature to adjust. So it takes you a little bit longer, but really it's quite convenient. And that heats our whole house in the wintertime.
I should be a dealer for these stoves. My friend that had the first one, who was one of 2 people that convinced me I could build my own house, because he and his 16-year-old son built a 3-story house in the Ozarks. He had one, and then I sold them to 2 or 3 other people before we ever moved to Shofar Mountain. I actually called my friend with the stove and said, can I bring my other friend over to look at it? And then they went and bought them. And then we bought this one. We have another one in the Longhouse, and we have another one in another house on Shofar Mountain.
Something else you can do with this, God, I love these things. You can dry your apples, you can slice your fruit and everything and just hang it near it, and you can dry your clothes. So if you live off grid in the winter and you've just washed and you're not sure what you're doing, just put them somewhere in the vicinity of that stove and they will be dry in the morning. So
we're gonna switch gears and go to washing, but before we do, because it just hit me, if I had to do this all over again and design my house, which I designed on graph paper, I would put the bathroom right behind this wood stove, and I would have the tub right behind it and have some kind of privacy wall or something up. But that way you could run the hot water from the stove right into your bathtub, because we just got running hot and cold water in our house less than a year ago.
A brother
6 months ago, brothers came and said, hey, we're gonna hook you guys up. And so we didn't even have hot and cold running water in the house. And if you put this, and our house is cold in the wintertime, and the further you get away from that stove, the colder the house gets. And so I would love to have the bathtub on the other side. Speaking of which, oh, that didn't show up very good on there.
There it is.
We really like our clawfoot bathtub.
This is my dishwasher now. I mean my clothes washer now. It's a clawfoot bathtub. We do have a really old school plug-in stand-up washing machine, but we have not set up where to put it yet. It won't fit in the house. And so I've been washing clothes by hand for 12 years, and I'm a lazy washer. The first thing we started was a little 2-gallon, I can't even remember the name of it, tub thing that you rotate with your hand. That worked okay, but 2 gallons at a time, that's like 1 pair of jeans. That didn't work. And so I see the ladies are like, oh, don't even think about it, sweetie. You're gonna make sure that washer works. We use our bath water, which is already warm and has soap in it. When we're done, I throw the clothes in, I put some more soap on there. I let them soak sometimes 2 days if I forget about them.
So wait, that means you don't take a bath for 2 days?
Oh, is it Saturday yet? Is it Shabbat? You do that personal hygiene once a week, whether you need it or not. I have a plunger, and I just plunge the clothes a bit, and I swoosh them a little bit, and that's it. If you see me looking a little grubby, now you know why, and I don't care anymore. I got enough of this in my hair that if you're gonna sass me about my clothes, then it's going to go down. I don't have time for that nonsense. So that is how we do the washing of the clothes and the dishes. I've been heating water to boiling hot to wash dishes since we were stationed in Malaysia. There was no hot water for me there in the 100-degree temps and the 98% humidity. And I thought at the time, many, many years ago, Father, is this a precursor? Because I don't really like this, but I do it. And yes, it was. Because in that little trailer, that's how the dishes also got washed. And in our house now, because of the brethren have blessed us with some hot water running, it's an on-demand propane hot water heater. I can turn this and hot water comes out. But
And the way we get that water, I didn't cover that, or Kate didn't cover it. Rainwater hits our roof, goes into a gutter, and then it flows into a series of IBC totes, those big square bulk containers inside a wire cage that we buy for $40 to $60. And then from there, when we turn on the water, this pump magically kicks on, and it pumps the water through, and the hot water goes through the on-demand hot water heater.
except when it's really, really cold outside, you get the PVC and it can freeze. And so I just go right back to what we're used to doing. Sorry, we pull the water from a trough. He goes, and this is part of his fit. I call it farm fitness. 5-gallon buckets into a trough of water, carry it in the house. I put it in a thing, I boil it, I wash her dishes. And I feel really about that because most houses' water is at 130 degrees in your dishwasher. That's normal for your bathtub. I'm having 212-degree water to start to wash my dishes. So I'm never concerned about, oh, is it clean enough? Did I kill enough of the germs? No, they're dead. They're way dead. And it makes me happy. So
we started this adventure. We were both about 50 years old when we started. And we did a lot of things the hard way. Back then I was carrying railroad ties on my shoulder because we use railroad ties on a lot of part of the property. And I'd lift them up and carry them, felt pretty good about myself. After a hernia operation, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna quit doing that. And we used to walk a lot on the land.
Basically had to walk almost everywhere.
Everywhere.
On it.
SK, she said it on her channel, so it's not like I'm giving away a secret. She had brain surgery a couple years ago. And when we're talking to the doctor, he said, well, you know, we can treat this with medicine for the rest of your life, or we can do surgery. And he was leaning towards medicine, and we don't want to be tied to the pharmaceutical system for a year, which is the preparedness talk. But and he goes, I'm like, well, we're not really into medicine. He goes, well, tell me about your day. And so SK, in her typical understated way, goes, well, in the morning I milk the goats, and then I go to the chickens. And I said, stop. I said, Doc, when she says she milks the goats, she walks a quarter mile up the side of a mountain. She untangles goats that have tangled themselves around trees. She unhooks them and lets them and he stops me right there and goes, we'll schedule surgery for Thursday.
Yep. I made it. It worked. I'm very happy with that, right? Yeah.
But anyway, we saved our money to buy a tractor. Wow, that didn't come out the right color either. Our tractor is bright orange.
Bright orange.
Doesn't that look red? It is bright orange. We call it Jack for jack-o'-lantern. We saved it for so long. We had beat up janky cars, and we would travel a lot for things like this, quite frankly. We were always renting cars, and we decided, you know, we should just buy a newer used car that we can actually drive instead of renting. And so we took our tractor money and we bought a car. And so then we had to save our tractor money again and again because we don't do debt. And we finally got Jack, which, wow, it just doesn't look like Jack. That is really weird. That tractor is bright orange like a jack-o'-lantern. This thing is a lifesaver. If you are going to homestead, I highly recommend you get a tractor. And the implements that we got with it, the loader on the front, I call it a scoop. That thing is worth its weight in gold. The box blade on the back keeps our roads from being horrible. And we also got a backhoe attachment, mostly for SK because she borrowed we rented a backhoe one time and she ran it, and then we borrowed a brother's little backhoe, and she just loves backhoes. So we bought the backhoe attachment later. And then on the front here, we hook these two forks, and they only cost like $200, I think, total for both of them. And you put them on the bucket and screw it on so you have two forks for lifting up steel and logs and everything else. It's really nice.
Before you change the picture, I need to make a few comments just so y'all notice. I want you to notice this is our road. This is it. This is the road. And then there's this concept I learned many, many years ago. It's called NFAS. It is not a fashion show when you're homesteading. So I want to point out, obviously, right? Today, IIAFS. This is a fashion show, but this, no. This is typical me
I didn't
on
even realize,
the property.
yeah, you're wearing like polypropylene long underwear under a pair of
Polypropylene,
shorts.
20-year-old long underwear from the military to keep me warm, my rag wool socks, the same shoes I'm wearing today, and a hoodie to keep myself warm. So, like, do not feel bad when you go out and you feed your chickens in your pajamas, and you have hay on your hat, and you've got dirt stains on your knees because you were in the garden that day. Don't worry about it. You can glamour up for town if you have to. But
I heard Bear TJ say in a video one time that he did chores sometimes in the morning in his pajamas too, and I'm like, yeah, we all do. It's like you get out of bed, there's things that have to be done. The chickens need to be fed, the rabbits need to be fed, and it's like, yeah, I could get dressed and do that, but actually, after I'm done doing those immediate chores, I'm going to sit back down here and look at the news and figure out what kind of video I'm going to shoot this morning.
Right.
And sometimes I shoot my videos and I purposely make sure you don't see my legs because, you know, wearing a pair of sweats or shorts or something, it's like, you don't need to see that.
Right?
But
Don't feel bad
so
about it.
this is valuable. I recommend you get a tractor. This one's a 37 horsepower, 4-wheel drive. We were looking for a 40 horsepower, close enough. And I would say really that's the bare minimum size you want because this tractor will lift 800 pounds, which sounds like a lot, but our stove weighed 800 and something pounds and we had to lift one of them up to put it in the longhouse and it was taxing, that tractor. So that's one. And then this is SK's Pride and Joy.
That's the Terex.
We
That's
just
the
got that
Kawasaki.
recently.
Yeah. Before we got that, we had a 4-wheeler. It was an Arctic Cat. For you techie guys, you know that's an older one. It did an okay job, but as we got older, it got harder and harder for me, especially, to get on the ATV. It was like back and hips, old people joints, right? And before that, we walked all over our property, which was really good for us and kept us healthy and a little bit skinnier. But now that we get older, we're not burning the same amount of calories. But the Terex is super useful. And I know some people are probably like, oh my gosh, they've got their own personal blah, blah, blah. No. This is a workhorse. This thing carries tools, the back end dumps. My dogs, you've seen in the videos, ride around in the back with me. He takes water up to a sheep with this machine. It goes anywhere on the property that we can get it. It's wider than the ATV, so there's still some parts of the property we can't take it. But it'll... sounds like I'm a salesman. Go out and get one now. It carries 2 adults in the front and 4 grandchildren across the back of the bed. So I'm the fun grandma. But also 3 adults can sit in the back. And our roads go like this. And I've been in it. And it's a comfortable ride, even though. So it has changed life on the homestead for us and will allow us to be out there a whole lot longer than we were anticipating being able to do that. Like when you're 80, I could still climb the mountain and everything, but I'm probably not going to want to do that. So this really did make a huge difference. And a horse is cool too. I just couldn't do that either. Arthritis, blah, 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 doesn't matter. But yeah, this was worth
You
what
mentioned
we
when we
paid.
came down we had a horse too.
I did mention
did
that.
you?
And the horse would go everywhere on the property. And not only that, the horse was quiet. I rode my horse into a Boy Scout winter camp once in -20 and had a red dog running with me in front. My neighbor's dog came with me for some strange reason. And the dog ran into the camp first, and the boys were all like, oh my gosh, it's a dog. And I was literally 30 feet away on the horse with that cape on, and they did not notice me for a good 10 minutes. And we're just standing there. Not only that, the horse gives you a perspective. You're 6 feet off the ground, and so you can see things you can't see when you're walking. So if you like horses, horses are good for a homestead. And they're really good for getting through the woods very quietly.
That's what SK says. I think horses are kind of like boats. You know, they say a boat is a hole in the water into which one pours money. Yeah, that's kind of what a horse is.
No, that is
But
not
hey,
true. Not true.
We've been doing this off-grid homesteading, like I said, for 12 years. We had to condense it down, and I thought, we could talk for another 3 hours and tell you
easy.
stories, but there's might be some questions here, and so, do y'all have any questions that, we could address specifically or more detail or something like that? I wanted to give you a couple minutes to do that if you wanted to. Yes? It's a 37 horsepower Kubota.
Yeah.
And yeah, I am such, okay. I'm not a gear guy and I'm not a technical guy, and I own some firearms, believe it or not. People are like, what handguard is that? What do you have? I'm like, I don't know, it's this one. It's the green one now that I painted it. My tractor, all I know is it's a 37 horsepower Kubota. So
I was there when we
that
bought
is.
it. I'm pretty sure that's what they told us about that particular scoop. So they could have upgraded it. They
But-
could have done, things.
Oh, come on, don't be shy. Yes, sir.
Okay, that's a really good question. Quite frankly, it's a really good question. So you have to weigh it. Okay, first of all, we had Torah believers tell us ducks are unclean. So we went and we researched and we looked at Leviticus and we looked at Genesis. They are not specifically addressed in the Word. And so then we looked at those that are unclean are usually a predator or a scavenger, and ducks are neither. They're omnivorous. So we thought, yeah, we're probably okay. Now, I love my ducks. Obviously, I have a million videos of my ducks. There's something about what they're doing and their quacking and the this and the that that really appeals to me. So on one level, it's good for my mental health to go down there and sit and see them. They do lay eggs. Different breeds of duck or varieties or whatever lay eggs at a different amount. So you can have the Pekins tend to lay more than others. They're very much for the meat. They're much bigger, and they do lay more. And then I've got cayugas, and there's other really pretty birds. Muscovies. Sarah here has muscovies, really good at laying eggs and hatching out babies. There's a witness here to this. I made a duck curry once in a Dutch oven for Sukkot, which was super simple. Throw the duck, veg, and some spices in there. Was it any good, Brother Cody? He wolfed down even the remains. The only thing he didn't eat was the bones. You can eat duck. It's a fatty meat, and it's really tasty. Peking duck, you can flavor it however you want. The downside is, there's a couple. You have to have fresh water of some kind. And I'm not saying, like a pond is not fresh water. A pond is dirty water. So you can have like a pool or something for your duck. But it is good for them to have fresh water daily to clean their bill in. So for me, it's rainwater. I catch rainwater off my little shed that I made in trash cans, and then I scoop them out like a gallon or two each day. The ones I have, because they have domestic stuff in them, have not hatched their own eggs yet, but with the incubator, we have hatched more. So you can propagate them that way. Moving in, and it goes in and out.
Is that the hook? Are they pulling us away?
Yes, they're saying you're talking way too long. The bad thing about them is they have streptococcus in their gut system naturally. And so I've had some infected bug bites that I've had to go get this big when I scratched myself and hadn't washed my hands properly. And I think that came from them. So if you're going to keep them, I've seen it on the internet. It's like really people picking them up, hugging them, kissing them, talking to them. It's like, no, you want to keep in mind, you want to have them in an area where you can keep yourself clean when you're dealing with them. So that would be the drawback. Another plus for them is they are like weather impervious. They don't care if it's -20 out there. They deal with it. Where chickens will get the scabby legs and the beaks get freezer burnt or things like that, the ducks aren't like that at all. And they're pretty smart. Like I've trained my ducks. We have our little routine. They go in the the pen when I want them to. They follow me around. They do that little, I'll walk in a line when I show up. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of benefits to them, and I give you that information so you can decide for yourself.
And I just have a quick comment to add, because it's about living off-grid and homesteading. You kind of get a sense for the conditions that we live under and that SK lives under. And I don't like ducks, but you can tell she loves ducks. So guess what? I'm all for ducks. If it keeps mama happy, and we're good. All right, questions? Yes, sir. You're what?
Yes. Yes.
We haven't. SK's the bird lady. I'll let her address that. I'll just say we haven't ordered birds forever.
Okay, so I love the quail idea. We have not raised quail, but I've seen other people who do, and the turnover is very fast. I think it's 6 quail, which is a benefit. But I had a sister tell me recently, and she was tickled, and I'm tickled for her. She made an outdoor garden like ours with the fencing around, and to keep the bugs down in there, she put quail in there because chickens will eat your kale and your broccoli and whatever, but the quail don't. And I thought, wow, that's really smart. Not only that, domestic quail in the US are supposedly not going to hatch babies live. Hers did. I think because she got them into a natural environment that they were more used to than being in a cage in your garage. And so that quail, now you've got an unending supply of meat if you can get your birds to do that. As far as chickens and ducks, I never wanted to be someone who ordered them, butchered them, and ordered more. How are you going to, right? So what I always did and what we've done successfully is order the birds I wanted, which was about 10 years ago, and then when they didn't hatch chicks, buy more chicks at like TSC when they show up, blend in. But now we incubate if we have to, which with solar, you can do that, right? You'll have a power source, but also get the birds who will hatch their own chicks and keep them. So that never-ending supply of chicken meat or duck meat or whatever you want. So I think...
All right, unfortunately, that's all the time we have. However, we will be out there at a table somewhere offering our book for sale if you want to buy it or chit-chat or whatever. So thank you for your attention, and we appreciate you all. Bless you all.